Welcome back. Now, women face a fresh set of health problems, often in middle age, but have to fight to be heard.
Women's health expert Dr Caoimhe Hartley is here to break it all down for us. Good morning to you.
Morning.
It's great to have you with us. Right, so midlife for women. What is...
Tommy's like, how am I going to get this wrong? How am I going to put my foot in this today?
What is deemed midlife for women?
So it's not a medical term, and it's not really defined as a category. But if you look at the epidemiological and public health studies, they tend to use the age of 40 to 60 as kind of defining midlife.
Okay.
But it's a bit of a loose definition.
Yeah, okay.
So what are the sort of things that we're seeing in that age range for women?
Yeah, so, I mean, there are certain health issues that crop up at this stage, and women often come in with either mental health issues or hormonal change in periods, perimenopause, menopause, all the stuff you'd kind of expect. More often than not, they come in with concerns. They're worried about how do I not just live longer, longevity, but how do I live really well?
Okay.
Like, they're looking at quality of life as well. And they're trying to avoid things like bone density loss or dementia or cardiovascular disease that they know is potentially coming down the line for them as they get older.
Okay. Between those sort of age 40 to 60, you're kind of thinking carers, caregivers, whatever. The stresses around that sort of time would be quite high as well.
This is what makes my job really challenging but really interesting, is because, you know, women come in at this point and you're trying to tease out what is hormonal change, what is life stressors. Like, they're often juggling, like you've mentioned, they're just spinning plates with kids or work or elderly parents or whatever it might be. Teasing that out is hard. And
it is the sort of thing you kind of, when you turn 40, it's all of a sudden going, have you had a DEXA scan? Have you had, and you're like, what are you all talking about? I don't understand, because it's this whole, it's like two phases of life. It happens. I'm sure it happens for men as well, does it? Or is it much more acute?
Do you know? I don't know.
We're not here to talk with the fellas today.
So women have different heart attack symptoms from men, and it's something that was very understudied for a long time. So what are our symptoms? Why are they different to lads?
So, well, they're different because historically, if you look at like clinical studies looking at this, they would have disproportionately enrolled men. So they were looking at male symptoms. So all of the kind of typical symptoms were defined as what men were reporting as their typical symptoms. But, you know, just in the same way that kids are not just little versions of adults, women are not just another version of men. We have independent and really different biology, so we present differently. And like a lot of the risk scores and guidelines are also validated based on what men have reported, so based on male kind of boundaries. So they're calibrated to men.
Okay.
That's why it's different.
Well, because this is it. I believed that heart attacks, men have more heart attacks than women, but actually looking at this, it's not true. It's actually the symptoms are different for a man's heart attack compared to a woman. So what are the differences between the two of them?
So women are 50% more likely to be misdiagnosed when they present with a heart attack than men.
So what, like, if I think I'm having a heart attack, am I
you
not
think
holding
crushing
your heart?
central chest pain, So for women, as opposed to pain, it's often tightness is what they describe, which is a bit different. And then instead of it being central, although it can be central, but they might experience jaw, neck, shoulder pain or epigastric pain. You know where you'd get reflux, where you'd get like acid reflux? So they might get misdiagnosed as having acid reflux as opposed to having cardiac symptoms.
So if a woman's having a heart attack, she could be just feeling nauseous.
Yeah, or fatigue is you can see it on the list there. So for the weeks leading up to her having a heart attack, a lot of women report increasing fatigue and reduced exercise tolerance. But and shortness of breath would be something else to keep an eye on, but it wouldn't be something you'd automatically associate with it being
acid
cardiac.
Reflux could be a symptom.
It could also be acid reflux. That's the problem.
That wouldn't be the attack, though, obviously.
Well, I suppose it reflects that your heart muscle or your cardiac tissue is having an issue, is experiencing an issue, So it's about having a healthy, open mind.
OK, so, and is that something that, I suppose, you know, it takes time for these things to permeate down through to GPs, doctors, people in A&E? Is it something that everyone knows now?
Yeah, you're fighting lots of different issues. Like, women are classic underreporters. We often minimise symptoms, actually.
Yeah.
Then you're fighting this kind of stereotypical attitude that women are actually hysterical and we overreport all our symptoms, which isn't actually true. So there's an awful lot going on to culturally change how we address women when they come into the practice and how you validate their symptoms and listen to them.
Okay.
So if women are seeing some of those symptoms around midlife, maybe
Yeah.
just go and see your GP or...
It warrants
really...
at least a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
OK, you were talking about DEXA scans there. Is
Yes.
this down to do with bone density?
Yeah, so your bone is living tissue. It turns over constantly. You actually make a new skeleton every 10 years, which is kind of a cool fact.
Right.
And so you have two...
That's really cool.
Isn't it really cool?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have two cell types. You have osteoclasts and osteoblasts. I can't remember which do which, but one of them makes bone and one of them breaks it down. So they're constantly battling against each other to turn your bone over. And then when you lose your estrogen, which happens at menopause, the cell type that is breaking the bone down becomes more dominant. And so you start losing your bone density. But bone density is complicated. Like, it's also influenced by genetics primarily. So you hit your peak bone density at 30, which is so depressing. But anyway, hit your peak bone density at 30. Yeah.
Not even midlife.
Not even midlife.
Enjoy it, guys.
Yeah.
Just hit a bone there.
Get the
Downhill.
Go on,
milk
just be
into
like,
you.
that's so good for me right
All
now.
downhill from there. So it's a combination of your lifestyle. Do you smoke? Have you other medical
Yeah.
factors like diabetes, celiac disease, genetics, your age, how your weight-bearing exercise, and estrogen? So it's all of these things. But certainly when you lose estrogen, you lose up to about 20% of your bone density within 5 years.
What can
your
you do
last
to
period.
support your bone density?
So simple things like, obviously, reducing smoking or cutting it out if you can, reducing alcohol, which has a negative impact on bone density too. I'm always the bearer of bad news. Reducing caffeine, increasing weight-bearing exercise, vitamin D supplementation, and plenty of calcium, about 1,000 milligrams of calcium per day in your diet.
OK, love it.
Tick, 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 tick.
I don't know if we're going to have time for this. Thyroids.
Yeah.
What is going on and why are women under or overactive when they hit middle age?
So really common to have an underactive thyroid in particular. It's more common than having an overactive thyroid.
Yeah.
Some of it is genetics triggering autoimmunity, which then leads to an underactive, like your immune system attacking your thyroid gland. It doesn't function as well and you underproduce your thyroid hormone.
But what does the thyroid do for you?
Lots of different things. It's metabolically very active and it sort of controls lots of different things. But you would feel it as fatigue, constipation, weight gain, dry skin, thinning hair, all those lovely things.
And what can you do to help?
So it's diagnosed with a blood test, usually through your GP, and you can be put on thyroid hormone replacement medication, and then your thyroid is monitored from there on.
Hello, the L-Troxin posse. There's a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot. Like, it seems to be something that is very common now, is it?
Oh, it is very common.
It's always been, I
hugely.
think it's the it's a big, like, that's a huge thing, like people with thyroid, right?
That's it.
It's really, it's really isn't it?
But it's very correctable, which is the kind of take-home message.
The bearer of good news.
There you
not
go. Yeah, it's not all bad news.
Maybe
Yeah.
bad news, but how to fix it. Caoimhe
Exactly.
Hartley, thank you so much.
You're very
for
welcome.
joining us this
Thanks,
morning.
guys.
Great to see you.
Thanks, Kiva. Cheers. Intensity's mad.
Right, we've a packed 2 hours ahead. We'll be right back. See you shortly.